Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Misha Saint-Amand. I'm the head of JuliaHub Marketing, and I'd like to welcome you to our latest webinar, Deploying Interactive Data Visualizations with Dash.jl. I'm joined today by our expert, Steve Kelly, who is a sales engineer for JuliaHub, and he has been a longtime Julia programmer and is here to share his information on Dash.jl, JuliaHub, and all the pieces in the middle. Steve, I'll turn things over to you.
Great. Thank you, Misha. Get started here. I just want to pull up a slide real quick here. So this is the goals for today. So we're going to give you a short introduction to JuliaHub. We're going to discuss Dash.jl, and we're going to talk a little bit about the deployment story on JuliaHub.com, and we'll open it up for a Q&A. I do want to emphasize, if folks have questions, please, type them in the chat. If they're particularly relevant to what we're discussing at the moment, I'm, always happy to stop and pause and discuss things. So please, we are moderating and watching the chat, so please post your questions there. So let's discuss a little bit about the learning objectives today. So I want to give everybody a brief overview of how to use JuliaHub, why you'd want to use JuliaHub, give you an overview of the basics of Dash.jl, how to mix data analysis tools such as dataframes.jl with Dash.jl, and then how to deploy features on JuliaHub. Oh, sorry, that should be JuliaHub 6.4. So these are coming shortly. So we're going to give you a short preview of things to come, and how you as a developer, you as a data scientist want to maybe start thinking about using JuliaHub.com in your workflows and communicating ideas to stakeholders. So we'll jump right into it. I would encourage everybody to check out JuliaHub.com if you have not already. If you're a Julia developer, you probably use JuliaHub.com on a regular basis to, for example, search for packages or search for notebooks or read documentation or things like that. So this is our landing page. We have all sorts of interesting information on there. I'd encourage everybody to create an account if you haven't already. I'm going to log in with Google. When you create an account on JuliaHub.com, everybody gets, I believe, about 20 hours of free compute. And that will give you access to several applications you can use, including Pluto and IDE. We have various others I'll talk about in a minute. Let's kind of just briefly go through the interface here on JuliaHub. So once you sign in, you're greeted with really nice interface. This is new in our recent releases. So if you haven't been on JuliaHub.com in a little while, I'd recommend you check it out. We've done a major UI overhaul. It should be much more user-friendly. I'll just enlarge this a little bit so it's a bit easier to read here. Okay, I think that should be good for everybody. So yes, let's start with applications. And I would encourage everybody, this is going to be like a very interactive session, right? So I'd encourage everybody to follow along if you can. And we'll have, example code you can run in the browser to get started. So to follow along, the first thing you're going to want to do is launch the Julia IDE. So for me, it's located right here. And I'm just going to press launch. And we're going to launch that while we, oh no, I don't have a credit card. That's not good. Sorry, I need to log in with my GitHub, I believe. Okay. Oops. Sorry, folks. Okay, so unfortunately, I did run out of my free 20 hours, so I'm going to just use this on our internal instance. You'll see that as a paying customer here, you can see quite a few more options. So I'm just going to launch the Julia IDE here. And this gives you an idea of, well, this is what if a paying customer of the enterprise version of JuliaHub would see. So we have quite a few applications available. On the public instance, though, I'm going to go back to JuliaHub.com so we can follow along. you'll see we have different applications here. So we have JuliaSim IDE. So if you're MATLAB users or Simulink users, this is very similar in spirit to those applications. It is a high-level GUI-oriented way to model systems. So if you're interested in mechanical modeling or electrical modeling, or mixed, types of, mixed domain modeling, JuliaSim is great for that. We also have Pluto notebooks, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. We actually have a whole section dedicated towards those. Puma's QSP, which is used in pharmaceuticals, for generating virtual populations. It's not my expertise, so unfortunately I can't speak to more depth, but certainly reach out if that's something of interest to you. Julia IDE is really the base here. So that's very similar to VS Code. It's an enhanced VS Code in the cloud instance. And then we also have JuliaSim Pluto. So you can use JuliaSim from a notebook. So these are the these are the 5 applications you'll see on a JuliaHub.com. We also offer enterprise. As you saw, I navigated to internal.JuliaHub, and we have other products such as Cedar, EDA, which is an EDA tool used for analog simulation and various things. Great. So now if you go to notebooks, we have a nice list here of various notebooks we can browse. So this is, these are publicly shared notebooks. We recently had a notebook competition at JuliaCon. And actually, I thought this was so cool. I'm a geometry guy. I was quite excited when I saw these notebooks. This was the winner of the notebook competition. So you can see that from JuliaHub.com, you get really nice notebook previews. So this particular by Renata Castello Branco, she works in architecture, I believe. She created this really beautiful analysis of I believe it's a sports stadium in Qatar. Yes, it's the Lusail Stadium in Qatar. And she kind of goes over, basically from sinusoids, how we can kind of, manipulate these things in 3D and create these beautiful plots. And it's quite a long notebook that really iteratively builds up the mathematics of the geometry of the stadium. It's quite cool. And you can just, preview that and check all that out right from JuliaHub.com. So you can see it's quite in detail, even going into the modeling of the trusses. There's all these beautiful, these great graphics that really illustrate the points. And that's what's kind of cool about Pluto notebooks, right? Compared to, say, Jupyter, things like that, is you really kind of get this interactivity. It's also reactive. So, you tend to have, you don't have like an evaluation order like you would in Jupyter. So Pluto notebooks, I think, are something that folks might be interested in exploring, and it's really easy to try this out on JuliaHub. So if you just click this edit this notebook button on any of these notebooks, right? So if I look at, for example, some basic math, I can just edit these, and I can just immediately go in and start modifying the code. So we've talked a little bit about applications, notebooks. We're going to talk a little bit about projects here in a second. So projects is probably more of an enterprisey feature. So we find that this is used for folks in, for example, the pharmaceutical or aerospace domains where they need, what we call like strict code provenance tracking. So things where like Git may, you want something backed by Git, but you often are interacting with higher level users that aren't really down into the the low level nuances of version control. So this is a higher level solution for folks that still need the the revision control and the provenance tracking, and this is a solution for them. And this is also what is going to be used to deploy dashboards. So you'll be using a similar interface. You'll be using projects to deploy dashboards on Julia 6.4. A really exciting feature we added is actually a enhanced version of ChatGPT that uses Julia specific embeddings. So we have an Ask AI prompt here. So if you go into normal chat GPT and you say, how do I write a function, right? It's really going to not know what you're talking about, right? It's, maybe you're talking about C code or Python or JavaScript. It's probably not thinking you're asking about Julia code. But we've created a special version that knows that you are interested in Julia, you want to know about Julia documentation, and it has all these resources available. So it's effectively an enhanced search engine. So you can see I just asked a generic question, how to write a function. It knew I wanted to write a Julia function, right? And it gave me this beautiful documentation. So you see that this is actually drawing from our, the corpus of Julia documentation that's available, both in the manual and open source. So I can, even ask it questions about specific packages, like how do I use data frames, right? And it'll give me a nice Julia relevant explanation. So this is a great way to give, basically get information. If you are a new Julia developer, this is a great way to get very specific information and help with Julia. If you are using ChatGPT, I would encourage you to try this also, because it's a great resource. So you can say, when I asked, how do I use data frames? It gave me, data frames 101 run. Here's how you install it. Here's how you use it. Let's read some CSVs. And it's great. Now, basically, these are all a lot of our interactive features. Probably what folks have used JuliaHub in the past for. If you are a Julia developer, you've probably used it for its package search features. And this is, a big part of JuliaHub, the public-facing part. We do have an enterprise solution that comes with enhanced features. So if you're interested in having your own package server, you could have the same experience behind your own, firewall. That's something you can certainly speak to us about offline. But for example, Pluto.jl, which is powering our notebooks, you can see I have all this nice information here. I can read the README. I can view information about what dependencies does the package use, who uses Pluto. So if I'm a developer and I'm wondering, if I make a breaking change, what depends on my package, right? So if you're internally, looking to roll out updates, this can be really helpful to know where breakages might happen. So if I change something, maybe I change my PDF generation or my profiling or my slider interfaces. So this is a very handy tool. If you are a Julia developer and you're not using JuliaHub, I would certainly encourage you to check it out. Also, it's a really great tool. So you can kind of think of it, obviously a little bit about GitHub, a little like GitHub, but obviously very specific to Julia code, and it also has all these great features for package management and things like that. And now jobs, you can see here, I've run several jobs. This is how we, for example, important part of, enterprise software is, knowing that you have logs and you're tracking things. So we have, these very, ponderous logs here that have lots of information. So if you're interested in really tracking what is happening and making sure your projects are reproducible, this is a great platform to be using. This is why folks, will prefer to, for example, use JuliaHub and VS Code on the cloud versus, say a different solution. Data sets, again, this is, a way to, for example, publish, CSV files or JSON files and have them accessible. And you can attach metadata, licenses, tags. You can share this with folks from the platform. Those can get linked to your projects. So you can, for example, attach, we can add collaborators and files and data sets to our projects so that they're segmented. So I think that's probably the basics of JuliaHub at this point. Misha, do we have any questions in chat? I don't think we did. So I'm going to move on to
nope, there's nothing in chat yet.
Okay, great.
So we're good.
So yeah, if folks had any questions about that, I'd encourage you to kind of poke around and try different things, but we're going to get right to it. So I did unfortunately run out of my free hours, so I'm going to be using our internal instance. It does look a little bit different, but yeah, I was testing it, and I guess I ran out of time. So yeah, so once you in your applications, you will have ideally launched. It's going to tell me I don't have a credit card. I need to have a credit card, but this will turn green, and you can press connect, and that will open up a new window, which will take you to a VS Code instance. Well, it looks like VS Code. It is VS Code. It's on the cloud, and it's optimized for Julia. So we have various extensions. For example, for parallel processing. If you go down here, you can see the JuliaHub logo right above the Julia logo. My colleague Jacob Ververka, I believe, is doing a whole webinar on parallel computing, so you can check that out. That's one of the great features of JuliaHub. Also, we didn't really highlight in my overview, but that's something I would also encourage you to look at. It's high performance computing in the cloud. Yeah, so this is a great part of extension, great extension to use, and that's accessible here. So to start, I'm actually going to go up here into this little hamburger menu, and I'm going to open up a new terminal. So that's Control Shift and backtick on my computer. It might be different on Mac, but that will open up a different Bash terminal here. I believe you can also just press this plus here, and that will also open up a new terminal. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to this link here, Julia Computing Dash tutorial. So I'm going to post this link in chat so folks can, let's see. I think folks should be able to see this link in the webinar chat. And this is the Dash tutorials. So this is what we're going to be going through today, and we're going to show basically the basics of Dash, and we're going to show you a few things about using Julia, right? So I'm going to start this with you, and we're going to go through this, basically explain why you'd want to use Dash, how to get this all set up, and we're going to work through this together. So I'm going to start by typing git clone, and I need to allow clipboard access, and I'm going to just copy paste my link there. So I'm going to clone that into Dash tutorials, and you see I now have Dash tutorials cloned right here. So I can cd into Dash tutorials, and yeah, so we'll do it this way. So what I want to do is we will type here Julia. This might actually be a little bit small, I realized. That should be better, right, Misha? Should be good. Should be visible. Okay, we'll make that a little bit bigger. So we're going to type Julia.
That's better, but hey, folks, if any of you have issues seeing it, please let me know. And we can adjust the screen.
Great. So we're going to type Julia -project. And what this is going to do is it's going to enable this Dash tutorials project. And there's a few different ways to do it, and I might as well just show all three now. So when you start Julia, you'll see that we have this normal Julia REPL. This is what was there by default. We can go click in here, this Julia environment, and we can pick a folder here. So we click this Julia and v1.9, and we'll move that over to Dash tutorials. And that should then, okay, it's going to run some background things to download cache, but that should set our environment. But if we do it this way, what we need to do is we need to run what's called an instantiation. So we brought in this code, instantiate, like so. So the way I get to this package mode is I put this right bracket here, this bracket, and that will bring me to package mode. And what I'll do there is I'll type instantiate, and this will basically set up the environment and download everything. So you can see we have about 69 packages we need to download and install into our environment. So by default, what I've when you clone something in Julia, package, it's going to give you a few different specifications. The two key components of that are a project and a manifest. So this project, you can see, has various things. So we have some benchmarking things, CSV, Dash, we have data frames, JSON, Plotly, and some things for servers. That's all great, but really what makes it reproducible is this thing called manifest. So you can see it's machine generated, editing is not advised. This actually has a full recipe of everything that will give you an environment that will exactly, this is the environment I used just yesterday, right, to test this code. So I can be guaranteed that when you run this instantiate command, you're getting exactly what I had set up yesterday. And I'm also getting the same exact thing I had set up yesterday. And this is one of the great things about the Julia Package Manager as well. Okay, so while this is running, it's going to be downloading some things there. I want to talk a little bit about why you want to use Dash. And I'm just going to create a little notes thing here because I want to type this live. So why Dash, right? Why Dash.jl, right? You probably know there's a lot of different dashboarding functionalities, in Python, there's like R Shiny, there's Genie in Julia, there's these different things. Why would you want to use Dash? Well, one of the great things about Dash is most of the logic is in JavaScript, right? So this is really helpful for us because this means if you want to interact with different backends, want to, for example, enrich it, it's all based on React in JavaScript. And this means that the backend is actually very light. So using Dash from Julia is not a second-class experience, right? It's a first-class experience because the actual backend code in both Python and Julia is only about actually 3,000 lines of code for the backend. So this means Dash is actually quite maintainable. It's quite up to date, and as the front end matures and it grows, the back end has a very low technical burden to maintain. So this is really appealing. So actually, when you use Dash, it's the Julia Dash.jl is actually just like it's not calling into Python or calling into JavaScript or something. It's actually just pure Julia code using http.jl. It's a Julia solution. To give you an idea of the popularity, you could look at it on Julia, but probably the larger user of Dash is Python users, and at last check they have about 1 million users per month, right, for Dash, and that is that's pretty good, I think, for a piece of software like this. So you can it's quite battle tested. A lot of folks are using it in production and so forth. And then just to sum up, right? So it is a mature product. It's widely used, and it's growing month over month, right? So and it is backed by Plotly, right? So and now JuliaHub. So you have two vested commercial entities that are developing this, and we're investing our time. Plotly's investing their time. So we see this as a great solution. Great. So at that point, we should have everything pre-compiled and we should be ready to go and start actually executing some code. So again, if you're not familiar with VS Code, this is VS Code, right? We have files on the side here. We've cloned some things, and we have some examples. So we're gonna go through these 6 examples. So let's start with this one hello world.jl. And the reason why there's 2 ways I can run this, these applications. I prefer to run it this way. So it says run with Julia -- project, and then I'm going to call it 1 - hello world. And the reason why I'm going to run this is because it actually allows me to have a interactive environment, as we will see in a second. So I can do live code reloading here. So you'll see, okay, info listening on 12.0.0.1. Okay, great. And then open in browser. So hopefully if you're following along, you should see that. And it's nice and fast, right? So this is one of the great features of 1.9, Julia 1.9. We now have on JuliaHub. Things just load so much faster. If you're used Julia in the past, you probably remember code loading times were slow. That's really not the case anymore. It's as fast, if not fast in Python. So hopefully you have a good experience there. Let's look a little bit about hot reloading and what's going on here. Okay. So the first thing that happens when you create a Dash app is you need to create the app here. So there's something strange going on here. I did app equals include app.jl. So I actually created this file called app.jl. And this is where I define my Dash high-level Dash app. So this is how I set up the server. This is how I set up which port it's going to use. I want to check if we're running on JuliaHub. So here I'm checking for this key in the environment, JuliaHub user email. If that exists, I know I'm on JuliaHub. And then I can do some different logic, right? So if I'm on JuliaHub, we need to run a proxy. And we have all this documented, all these changes here. So we have external style sheet support, and then I create a Dash app finally. And here's one of the cool things. I put a note here. Julia follows the Lisp tradition of returning the last thing specified in the file. This should also be in function, really code block. So including this file will return a Dash call that can be assigned to app. So when I have all this code, and then when I write this hello world, I'm actually just assigning this to that Dash. App is equal to that Dash call. So cool little syntactic nicety there. So here I start the basics of a layout. So there's two parts, right, to every Dash app. The first we're going to discuss is the layout. So the layout you can think is this kind of high-level functional structure that basically maps to HTML, but also gives me variables. So here I have an H1 that says hello Dash. This is heading 1. I have a div that gives me some paragraph, and then I finally have a graph here. And this, I'm just made up some data here of giraffes, orangutans, and monkeys in San Francisco and Montreal, and I do a layout. And then I finally include the server.jl, and let's see what's over there. So this is just finally the run server call. So this is actually when you run this is why this is staying open, because this run server is sitting in a loop, serving up a server. And let's see what happens if we can change something. So hello Dash, let's change this to hello JuliaHub users. And then we're going to save this, and you should see, yep, I restarted the server. And now I have a nice hot reloaded. So this is really handy, for development. You don't have to restart and start your server. So I think at this point this should be kind of expected from web development folks. But yeah, we certainly have that feature. So I mentioned there was two parts of every Dash app. The first one is the layout. The second one is actually callbacks, right? So here we start to set things. So we're going to run this one. This one is, so everything is 2. So it's 1, 2. So you can just do 2 and then tab complete. You'll see interaction. So again, it's a very similar structure where we have our app set up. We have our server. We have our layout. The addition we've added here is we add a callback to our app, which looks at the output of, here we have a div with an ID that's my output. So it's going to be putting this function here. This is an anonymous function. We have this do block syntax. So if you're like a Ruby user, forgetting what other languages use do block syntax, this is an anonymous function. So I'll show you actually a way we can rewrite this. So this is saying create an anonymous function here that takes input value and then returns this output as a string, right? So it's basically just taking the input and returning it as a string. And what Dash is doing is it's putting this output string into this div here with this ID my output, and where the input is derived from is my input, which is here, right? So this is also a DCC input. So this is actually like a component type, and you'll see that this is just a text box. So I'm going to reload this. And we can see here, okay, so it's set to initial value, and I can just start typing. I can just say, Julia is great, right? And everything happens. So you can see this is a very simple callbacks 101. So with these two features, you pretty much understand the basics of how Dash works, right? You have an app layout that you create, and then you attach callbacks to your different IDs. And that's how interaction happens. That is the absolute basics of Dash, right? Now we can start to add more sophisticated interfaces on top. So this is a cool one. Here we're going to actually start doing some data analysis, and I just need to be cognizant of time here. So this is example 3. So we're going to add some data sliders here, and we're going to actually just start talking some data slicing. So here we're starting to add data frames. So I downloaded, for example, this is a Plotly data set, an example CSV. I take a CSV file and convert that into a data frame. I do some simple analysis on it, create a nice layout. Here I want to do some slider. Here you can see I actually do quite a more sophisticated callback where I'm actually regenerating the plot in the callback. So there's really no limit to what you can do. You can also use different plotting backends. So here we're using Plotly, but if I'd like, I could use plots.jl. You can even use WGL Maki. We have various different plotting solutions in Julia. So I'm going to reload our page, and this one may take a little bit longer to generate. But here you can see I've added a slider that has years on it. And you can see I kind of, years is right. So I'm pulling the years from our data frame, and then I'm mapping those to this slider. So you can see what's really cool about this is I can kind of see how GDP changes over time and the growth. And you can imagine this would be a really nice animation. And because it's using Plotly, I have these really nice overlays where, I can look and I can see, okay, this is the Americas or Asia, and look at different countries, and then overlay and see which one's which. So with very little code, I'm actually accessing the full rich feature set that's in Plotly, and also really bringing this all together with Dash. Do we have any questions in chat? Yeah. Okay. I think everybody's a Dash professional then. So that's a fun one. This one's very cool. So we're going to also show this example, which is how to do multiple inputs. So this one we're going to have some drop downs. We have all the drop downs, radio items. So radio items will select. We have linear or log as our options, and then we're going to pass that then into, for example, so x-axis type. We then pass that, for example, linear or log, into our plot. So you can see that we can actually pull these, different drop downs and radio items, and then we pull those as inputs into our callback. Right. So remember, you have a single output in the front, and then this is actually an n-ary callback. So you can have multiple inputs here. So we're pulling together 5 different inputs that are then generating this single plot. And obviously then you can have multiple callbacks. You have multiple callbacks with multiple inputs, and they could be the same. same input or shared inputs, that's totally legitimate. So here I am looking at, I have all different country data. So I can start to, maybe explore different correlations. So let's look at, like, for example, population density versus, say, like agriculture, right? Okay, nothing really interesting there, or power consumption or services. So this is, and then I can also scroll over time here. So this is pretty sophisticated. This is quite a nice way to really dive into your data, especially early on. You can use something like this to kind of help aid in your data exploration process. And this is showing multiple inputs, right? And then finally, we have interactive layouts. So folks want to, sometimes they want to do, like, have different indirection, right? They actually just want to plot data and then somehow figure out, the region of interest, somehow basically use these plots as a way to then, segment data, right? So visually do that. We'll show how to do that in this 5th example here. And this is going to show how we do more advanced callbacks from the plots. Unfortunately, this is, well, fortunately or unfortunately, this is a thing that you can only do with Plotly. This is Dash being a tightly integrated with Plotly, that will probably be your best experience for using the service. So this, we're going to show how we can click on different data, and then get a callback, select, and all the different modalities we have available. So here we can hover on our data, we can click our data, we can select our data, or we can zoom on our data. We're going to see how all these. So right now we don't have anything, right? Well, we have nulls and auto size true. So if I hover, you can see this one changes down here. So let's see. This point index should change. So I can, for example, if I wanted to create a subgraph or some sort of interface that was giving me data based on where I was pointing my mouse, you can imagine, like, if I I can have a world map, and as I'm looking at the country data, it would select the country of interest. If I click, I get a click. I can zoom. I'll do zoom first. It shows up here. I can zoom, and it will show me the range I zoomed on, and then what are the indices of the members. I have 2 members in there. If I double click on the plot, I zoom out. This selection data is a bit different. I got to scroll up. I can do a box select or a lasso select. Lasso select is pretty fun. I can kind of draw this little box here, and you should see I got a curve number, and I got all these lasso points, and I selected data. Great. So being cognizant of time, I think.
1 second, Steve. We did have a question pop in, which was, does Dash.jl support Choreo Plus maps? I may have said that wrong. So.
Good question. I don't believe that is that would not be a Dash.jl feature. That would likely be a Plotly feature. So I would look at the Plotly documentation, and if that exists in Plotly, you can use it from plotly.jl, and then you can then surface that to Dash. But yeah, certainly if that's something you're interested in, please email me, and we could talk a little bit more if you had further questions about that. Great. So I'm going to just skip over this, but 6 was an exercise we could have worked through together because we are getting low on time here. But this would show you basically how to, select a CSV from this website. We're going to load up a data frame. I'll give you a hint. We did it before in one of these. We're going to basically build out a simple dashboard from our CSV and do some data analysis. So if you're interested, I would give this exercise a shot. It could be pretty fun. and we have maybe about 5 to 10 minutes. So I just want to wrap up with really kind of going over, hopefully this gave you an idea of the power of JuliaHub, the power of Dash. That Dash is a pretty flexible and simple tool to use. It is well supported. But then obviously we all want to, we're developers, we want to get our ideas into the real world. Well, how do we do that? And that's the deployment story. So we're really excited about where we're going in Julia 6.4. Yeah. So this is a short video we've put together of so this is a short video we've put together of the Dash deployment story launching in 6.4. So as mentioned, you can launch from projects, and I'm just going to pause here to show. So here we let's go back here 1 second. So this is that projects interface we talked about, and you can see there's a bin folder, a manifest, and a project. So this is, basically a simple. We can't see the context of bin, but there is a dashboard in there, and we've added this deploy button here. So you'll see he clicks on this deploy button, and we can start our application. So if for some reason we were using a dashboard that needed a GPU, we could add a V100 GPU. But in this case, we're not. So we use 4 vCPUs and 16 gigs memory on a single process. We can set cost limits if we want. We are working on elastic scaling for these systems. So we're still, that's something we can look forward to in the future. We select a port number and we can select our authentication methods. So what's great is, there are a lot of enterprise features. So if you're on Enterprise JuliaHub, you can keep things locked down and firewalled. If for some reason you want to have go on JuliaHub.com and host something for the world, your great dashboard for COVID or, whatever you're looking at, that's something that's also available. So you have these various levels of permissions you can use, selecting authentication. I think in the final release that interface is changed a little bit. Great. So he's run the deployment, and you'll see there's a job running called deployment, and we have all the associated logs that we can get from that. And as it starts up, it will start up the job. We can connect to the job. And once we connect, you can see that we'll see the first dashboard, the Hello World Dash example in just a second here. So the graph will pop up. Right. So this is the full end-to-end flow you'll be able to look forward to in Julia 6.4 previewing. That should be in the next few months. You'll have access to that system. We also are really excited to give you a preview of, we have a far more sophisticated demos and interfaces for Dash to give you, really probably a better jumping off point to do your analysis. So this is an early preview. This will be on our website shortly. Misha, I think it actually is, but it's just an early preview at this point. So we'll go through some of these. So you can see we have like tumor classifications. So MRI data, meshing. This is something I worked on. I didn't work on this example, but I'm excited about MRI data. And we have a few examples like that where we have a mix of visualizations and inputs, more CT scan data. Here we're looking at home modeling, AC and solar charge. So this is exciting. So as our Julia Sim products are starting to integrate with Dash. So you can, for example, mix like solar models with battery models and then generate like really nice dashboards. And then also like fuse your models with real world data. And that can all come together in Dash.jl applications. Real estate data analysis, sentiment analysis for movies, survivability factors for cancer, PDE simulations, some ML, reinforcement learning, actuarial applications. I think we have about 12, yes, we have 12 demos in here. So we have some image processing and clustering. So hopefully, when this website is launched, you'll be able to, go to the code here and, get a good jumping off point for whatever your industry is, and start using Dash in an application, with a really thorough, a thorough and complete example, that'll help you, communicate to stakeholders, right? Because that's what I think dashboarding is all about, right? Is taking your analysis and making it consumable to a lot more people, and a lot, with a lot more simplicity. So hopefully, if this was successful, you got a little bit of a taste of JuliaHub, Dash.jl, some of the low-level basics that you can start going. And hopefully you're excited about deployment features in JuliaHub, and you want to give it a shot when we launch it soon. Yeah. Do we have any questions?
Not yet. We'll give it 1 second.
Okay, great.
Steve, when will this be available in 6.4, so you can take advantage of these features?
Yes. So the 6.4 rollout, we are on. So if you go to JuliaHub, at the bottom, we're on 6.3. So this is the next point release of Julia. So that will be in, I believe, in the next 2 months. That's
October, correct?
Yeah,
right?
it would probably be October. Again, we do an extensive QA process and slow rollout. So, yeah,
So folks, if you're interested in staying up to date when the 6.4 release rolls out, I'd encourage you to visit our website. If you go to our blog page, you can sign up for updates, and we can get out a newsletter to you. We just do it once a month, and we can let you know when it's live, so you can take advantage of it. So far, no other questions. I think you were very thorough.
So thank you so much for everybody for attending. If you have any questions, my email is steve.kelly@juliahub.com. I'll actually I'll edit to this slide here.
Folks, we'll actually put out the follow-up email with the recording, and you can respond to that, and I can forward that on to Steve for you if you had a question you didn't want to ask here. So,
of course. I'm also SJ Kelly on GitHub, so if you need to ping me about Dash questions, I'm always happy. We do have, one thing I wanted to also add is we are really excited about where we're going with Dash and Julia particularly, and I know the Plotly developers are very excited about this. That some of the new features in Julia 1.9 allow us to have like package extensions and like context specific code. So we have this package called Dash.extensions.jl. It's this high level concept that you'll be able to create like very terse, interfaces. So I mentioned before, you can use plotly.jl or plots.jl. A lot of the low level machinery of getting, for example, plots.jl to interact with Dash is going to be handled automatically. And this is kind of a Julia specific thing that we're really excited about. And this is because of package extensions in Julia that you can do this. So that's something we're starting to explore. I didn't highlight it too much here, but that's something, if you're on the fence of like, do I want to use Python or Julia for Dash, that's something I would also maybe consider, is that we are rolling out these features slowly that will really, I think, make your code a lot more simple if it is in Julia versus the equivalent Python.
Great. Steve, thank you. Thank you for everyone attending. I know we have some future webinars coming up on Dash that we're scheduling. as well as a full schedule of webinars for the next month or so. So I would encourage you to visit our site and take a look and see if there's anything else that interests you about JuliaHub, or the Julia Sim modeling and simulation product that Steve mentioned. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Steve.
Oh, we got a few Q&As.
Oh.
Just some thank yous, but yeah, there was a question about a no-code editor, but that was unfortunately, just to give you a quick answer about that. No, there's no low-code editor for Dash yet, like Genie Builder. We have started conceptualizing something, but I don't think we're really, it's all very early stage at this point.
Great. Thank you, guys. So happy to have you join us. Thank you again, Steve.
Thank you, Misha.